both play on very good teams for very good organizations, for great coaches and great systems, great players around us. So just grateful for the opportunity to compete, grateful that we're in a situation where we're battling, here in the division.
We've both been around for quite a while, so, he's a great quarterback. He's been so productive over a lot of years, and especially at the Saints. I was competing against him when he was at Purdue. The two of us were playing each other. I played him at Michigan. He's been a hell of a player.
Combined age of 84, combined touchdown passes of 1,121. Tom Brady and Drew Brees cross paths for the second time this year in the same division for the first time. Saints traveling to visit the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. My mind, Peter, game of the week. I'm not doing the, perfunctory corporate cheerleading here. This is the game of the week. Without question, it's the game of the week. Last week, Eagles-Cowboys, not the game of the week. This week, Saints-Buccaneers, absolutely positively the most compelling game of the week, especially because of the fact that the Buccaneers have come so far from that first game where they did go up 7-0 with a Tom Brady touchdown run, and then the Saints ended up being the better team that day. I can't wait to see what this Buccaneers offense does, especially with the arrival of Antonio Brown, against a Saints team that will be overmatched on defense, but appears to be getting Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders back to help Drew Brees. I just hope for every football fan out there, it's a close, high-scoring game that goes down to the wire, and I have a feeling it will be.
One of the reasons it's so interesting, Mike, is that there's a good chance this will be the last time that Tom Brady and Drew Brees ever play against each other. And if that is the case, if Drew Brees does walk away at the end of this year, if that's the case, then I think we are looking at basically not only two of the best quarterbacks to ever play, clearly, but statistically the best two quarterbacks to ever play. And what's interesting about it is you wonder how long will that last statement last in pro football history because of the way everybody's throwing the ball now. I mean, how many years is it going to take for Patrick Mahomes to pass them both? And who knows, maybe Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, you don't know. But the thing about this game that to me is absolutely fascinating, okay, Sean Payton gets all his weapons back. Now he doesn't have to just deal with Austin Carr. Now he's got his two premier receivers that he basically architected his offense around in the offseason. Emmanuel Sanders, obviously, and Michael Thomas. So now they both come back. Meanwhile, Mike, if I were Bruce Arians, I'd walk into Byron Leftwich's office one of these days this week, his offensive coordinator, and I'm going to say, look, you better get Antonio Brown ready. Because with Mike Evans not being 100%, with Scotty Miller really struggling with hip and groin injuries, and whether you have Chris Godwin or not, he's not healthy at all, and he's got the broken finger. You need a game-breaking player in this game. And that's why, to me, I will not be surprised. Right now, if you had to go to Vegas, Mike, let me ask you this. Over-under on snaps for Antonio Brown in this game. If I put it at 30, okay, let's say they have 65 offensive plays. If I put it at 30 for Antonio Brown, what are you taking, the over or the under?
Over.
Me too.
Over.
I would too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been
There's
the
a
secret
reason
weapon.
why Tom Brady... There is a reason why Tom Brady has taken Antonio Brown very quickly under his wing. Stay in my house. Come with me. Ride to work with me. He is inculcating him right now, and not just in the offense. They have plenty of time for that. But he's also inculcating him, and he said, dude, last chance coffee shop here. This is it. You got to do it. This is the golden opportunity. We can get you a Super Bowl ring. No one knows what the future holds. No one. But right now, live in the moment and be great for us right now. Don't say anything. Shut up and go home every day. Stay off social media. Just play football for the next 2.5, 3 months, and your life is going to be great.
And Sims and I talked about this earlier in the week. This isn't Tom Brady deciding that there's this charity case that he's going to devote all this time to. There's a benefit to Tom Brady because Antonio Brown,
of course,
is potentially, we talked earlier in the show about best receiver in the game. Well, one of the reasons we're talking about all these other guys is Antonio Brown hasn't played for the last 2 years. The last time the Saints saw Antonio Brown was his last game with the Steelers. 14 catches, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was the game where Juju Smith-Schuster fumbles. Steelers get knocked out of the playoffs because the Saints ended up winning 31-28. 2 days later, Juju Smith-Schuster is the team MVP. Next day, Antonio Brown has some sort of a conniption fit.
He's pouting.
And storms out, throws the ball at Big Ben, and never plays for the Steelers again. So that's the last football memory we have of Antonio Brown in a Steelers uniform, slicing and dicing the Saints defense. And now you've got Mike Evans. You've got Gronk, who is becoming Gronk again. You've got Tom Brady at quarterback, for crying out loud. You've got Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, who can do great things underneath if the defense is going to be obsessed with neutralizing the receivers. And yeah, Peter, to get back to the point, Tom Brady is doing all this because he knows that if he can get Antonio Brown pointed in the right direction, that means Super Bowl number 7 for Tom Brady.
Well, Mike, you know what? When you were talking about his last great moment, really, his last great moment in the NFL was the perfect corner route that Brady threw him with the Patriots when he caught it near the corner of the end zone and he just jumped into the stands in Miami, which, by the way, what's so interesting about that play happened 1.2 miles from where Antonio Brown was from, and so now he gets a chance. Again, Tom Brady, the prettiest throw he has thrown this year is the deep corner route to Scotty Miller a couple of weeks ago. And what that told me is that, first of all, everybody said, Brady's deep arm, it's flawed, blah, 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 blah. No, it isn't. He needs somebody to get 2 steps on a corner, throw that corner route. I guarantee you that is what you're going to see with Antonio Brown this week.
Antonio Brown was with the Patriots 1 week before that game. He was a Raider 8 days before that game. And look, Peter, I have no proof to back this up, but you know what? Look around. Plenty of accusations are being made this week with absolutely no proof. But I at least have some circumstantial evidence to back up what I'm about to say. I think that Tom Brady and Antonio Brown have been working together for a while. And I think Antonio Brown has had the Buccaneers playbook for a while. And I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Antonio Brown has been living with Tom Brady for a while. This isn't something that just dropped out of the blue a couple of weeks ago when the Seahawks were being not very discreet about their interest in Antonio Brown. This has been in the works to the point where it would not surprise me to find out that Bruce Arians deliberately said in late March, I don't want him, as a way to keep everyone else off the trail. That they knew then, eventually, they're going to make a play for this guy. There's no reason to do it now. There's no reason to do it in August. There's no reason to do it until he is approaching the end of whatever punishment the league imposes on him. Back in March, we didn't know what it was going to be. Let's sit tight. We'll make the move at the right time. I believe all of that, other than the fact that Bruce Arians deliberately said we're not interested. I don't necessarily believe that. It just wouldn't surprise me. Everything else I believe. Because, it was just a week and a half ago. They asked Tom Brady a very simple question. Have you been working out with or throwing to Antonio Brown? And he didn't answer it. He answered a different question. That told me everything I needed to know. Because it's a simple question, yes or no. No, I haven't. He's showing up here for the first time, and we got to get this thing going. I think that rabbit hole of connection between Brady and Brown goes a lot deeper than we realize, and I think we're going to see the product of it on Sunday night.
What the way we would know the answer to that question, and really maybe the only way we would know the answer to that question, Mike, is if Mike Evans was 95%, if Chris Godwin was 100%, if Scotty Miller was 98%, and if O.J. Howard was healthy too. Now, all of that is fairly unrealistic in the grind of an NFL season. I get that. But it's now been 11 days since I asked Bruce Arians why Antonio Brown. The first word out of his mouth, injuries. And so I believe right now that if all those guys were healthy, and it's, as I say, it's unrealistic to think. It's very rare that you're going to go through a season where your 4 or 5 most important weapons in the passing game by week 9 of the season are all healthy. But if they were, I don't believe that they would have signed Antonio Brown. But, you know, we'll probably never know that.
But let me give you my 2 cents on that. I think that Tom Brady would not have relented because he would have said you never know when an injury is going to happen or a COVID-19 situation is going to happen. Let's have a guy at the bottom of the roster that we can trust if need be. And also, this never really got discussed the way I think it should have been. The idea that there's a defensive element to signing Antonio Brown. Because if the Buccaneers had said thank you, no thank you, and he shows up on the Packers, who according to Adam Schefter had made the phone call to Antonio Brown, if he shows up on the Seahawks, who were openly talking about it, I think openly talking about it to try to get someone else to sign him, frankly. They did their due diligence. They weren't comfortable, but Russell Wilson wanted him. And if he's out there and Russell Wilson keeps banging the drum, at some point John Schneider may have to say, fine, let's give him a one-strike opportunity. Then if you're Tom Brady, you got to worry about this guy that you want on your team making it harder to get to the Super Bowl because your defense is going to have to deal with him when you face the Packers or the Seahawks in the playoffs.
I mean, can you imagine Antonio Brown and Davante Adams each lined up, you know, on opposite sides of the field for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, it would have been unfair. It really would have been unfair. I would have said right then, as much trouble as they've had with stopping the run recently, I would have said the Packers are going to the Super Bowl. Now, you know, you also have to say to yourself, if something happens legally to Antonio Brown in the next 4 or 5 weeks and basically detours him from helping a team deep into January, if that happens, then all bets are off. But Mike, you just said something that I think is absolutely 1,000% true. Because what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did in keeping him away from teams that definitely were interested, and there were others in the AFC too that I think were kicking the tires on this. What the Bucs did was not only good for their offense, but potentially come January could be very good for their defense.
And one last point on this before we move on to the next game on the list. The idea that Tom Brady is being a great teammate by giving Antonio Brown a place to stay. Let's not kid ourselves. You mentioned the possibility of Antonio Brown getting in trouble at some point over the next 4 or 5 weeks and ending prematurely his run with the Buccaneers like he ended prematurely his run with the Raiders and then with the Patriots. If he's living with Tommy, he ain't going to get in any trouble. That's part of it. It's not just being hospitable. It's babysitting, right? It's making sure he doesn't get in trouble. If he's living with Tom, he ain't getting in any trouble. So another reason to feel very good about this if you're a Buccaneers fan, and just fascinated if you're a football fan about what happens when these guys get back on the field together.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.